I was going to just mention that with the recording, we'll stop it after the presentation. So for the Q&A portion, we won't record people's comments and things, and that way we can have a bit more of a free-flowing chat. That said, yeah, thanks. I'm super stoked to be here with you folks. I was looking at my presentation slides, the old one, I have a new one. And almost exactly 2 years ago, we did a similar presentation with Cycle Halifax, April 27th, 2021. So it's about time to refresh and remember our rights as cyclists on the road. Yes, I'm Dave Shonlett. I run the Biking Lawyer LLP. We're a law firm that helps primarily injured cyclists across Ontario, from Ottawa to Owen Sound. We do presentations like this to let people know what to do if the unfortunate occurs. It's easy to make mistakes, and mistakes is maybe a bad word for it. It's easy to forget to do certain things when shock and adrenaline is pumping through your system. But we also want you to be able to help out a fellow cyclist and make sure that when they're having shock or adrenaline running through their system, that you can provide them with the support and knowledge that you have. Yeah, so while I'm in Toronto, we have an office in Hamilton. And my wife's from Dartmouth. I have been coming out to the East Coast for years. My in-laws are there, and I won't say what or who, but my father-in-law is a very high-ranking judge in the province. So we've got some connections, and I'm going to watch my words tonight because I'm now in his jurisdiction. And sort of, without further ado, we'll jump into the presentation. It's based on my experiences with our clients and sort of how they've navigated crashes, but it is also from my own experience as well. And so I'll speak a lot about that. I was hit in a painted bike lane, and broke my wrist and my elbow in 2019. So I did some things right, and I did some things wrong. And so we're going to get to that. I'm going to try and seamlessly share my screen here. If you have questions, throw them in the chat as they come up, but we'll answer it all at the end and have a real free-flowing discussion. I find that is the most helpful in these interactions. I'll give like 20 minutes, 25 minutes of talk about rights and things like that, but I want to be light on the law and more on engagement and discussing this kind of thing in practical scenarios. Okay. One second. Is that coming up okay there? The Know Your Rights presentation? Great. Okay. So yeah, the presentation is for you to know your rights, be aware of what your entitlements are should the unfortunate occur. We'll talk about what to do in the immediate aftermath if something happens, and then as well sort of more in post-collision supports that are available, and we know kind of the differences between Ontario and Nova Scotia. Can explain how it's supposed to work in theory, but the law and reality are two different things. How you navigate interactions with police, the healthcare system, insurance companies, and lawyers is going to be subject to the same disparities and inequities that people face across the board. So race, gender, class, religion, those things all come into play in how you'll be treated post-collision. So we'll try and address some of that at the end, but I just want to be mindful of it at the beginning. Yeah, these things unfortunately happen to me, and one should be prepared. First thing, if possible, get safe and get off the road. Um, Take a quick assessment of your injuries and move to the sidewalk if you can. If you're not able to, ask a bystander or the person that hit you to help you get off the road. If it's unsafe for you to do so because of neck or head injury, then make sure that people are safely cordoning off the area. Um, that is something that you can do if you come across a crash. Is you can help keep people safe by putting your bike in your body to alert oncoming traffic that something has happened here. I have done that in the University of Toronto. Someone went down in front of me, and so until we realized that they could get off the road because it was their shoulder, I stood there and like helped wave people by on my bike. So that's one thing. But yeah, assess your injuries and get safe. Primarily, point number one. Second, document and photograph everything if you can. Take pictures of the person's license plate. Take pictures of their driver's license, their insurance card. Take pictures of any of the damage your bike may have caused to their vehicle. As you're waiting around, maybe it's a long time for the ambulance to come, start taking pictures of any road signs that would say, no left turn, no right turns on a red or something like that. And they did that to you. Take pictures of where the cars are parked to show line of sight and things like that. You can just take as many as you can. I can tell you a good story about that. And this is one thing I did right, is that when I got hit, I grounded myself and realized that like I could walk and that I hadn't suffered a head injury. My upper body hurt, but I got off the road and I whipped out my phone and I took a picture of the person's license plate to ensure they didn't leave without me getting some of the information. And then I started taking a few other pictures, and I took a picture of my handlebar because he turned into me. My handlebar went into the backside of his car, passenger side, and left a big black mark down the side. And I photographed that. Years later, in the lawsuit, he pulled out pictures of his vehicle the next day. He had gone to a separate police reporting center, and the pictures of his vehicle when he showed up there were clean. And so, and he said, no, the crash didn't happen like Dave said it did. He kind of just bumped into my car and fell over from a stop. Mind you, I probably hit him at 20 clicks at least, or he hit me rather. And we pulled out my pictures of the damage to his vehicle on scene, and quickly proved he was a liar. And that case resolved in my favor, obviously. So that was one thing I did good. Take pictures and record that stuff. You can never, unfortunately, put your faith in people that they will maintain the demeanor that they have at a crash scene. Often we see people turn 180 completely, like the person in my situation. He was nice to me on scene, offered to take me to the hospital, but then later called me a liar, so you want to get pictures. Don't just take a phone number and say, oh, I'll text you if I have a problem. Get a picture of a license plate. In sort of a hit and run scenario, if you unfortunately don't get the plate or a bystander doesn't get it for you, take note of the businesses in the area, if there are any. See who has cameras. Also, a lot of if you're in a residential area, a lot of residential properties these days have these Amazon theft cameras. And I have a case of a cyclist who got hit in front of a house on a corner, and the driver did a left turn in front of his path when he didn't have the right of way, and that driver later said that, oh, your cyclist came off the sidewalk, I didn't see him. But thankfully, there was a Amazon camera, Amazon package camera that caught my person on the road, and now that driver is facing some charges. So take a look in that area if it is a hit and run scenario, and you want to point that out to police. Yeah. Call authorities down there, and get to the hospital. This is where I did the wrong thing. I had just been through a trauma unrelated, and so when I got hit, I knew I was like I had been hit, but I was like pumping with adrenaline, and I'm like I do not want to be injured again. And so I took down some information, got the pictures, and then I'm like, no, you know what? Like, let's not call the police. I'm just gonna go to this thing I have to go to. Around that in the evening, around 4 in the morning, I was in bed and realized that as the adrenaline wore off, I was in some significant pain, and so I went to the hospital. And they identified me with a wrist and an elbow fracture, and I had biked home with those injuries. So get them down there. I hear a lot of cyclists say, "Oh, I didn't want to pay the $45 ambulance fee." Well, whether at fault or not, the ambulance fee is covered by your Nova Scotia Section B benefits, so it'll be repaid. Number two, you could be like me, not a medical professional and in shock, and so you need to go and get a professional to give you a diagnosis. Best case scenario, they tell you you're fine, um, but you want to know. You want to know that you're fine before you start putting weight on an injury or exacerbating a tear or something like that. We hear a lot of in Ontario, wait times in the emergency rooms are atrocious. And so I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I didn't want to go to the ER and wait all night." Well, the thing about that is, so you get home and the pain sets in because the adrenaline wears off, and so you have to book an appointment with your family doctor or go to the walk-in the next day. That takes an hour and a half. The doctor there doesn't have the equipment to do an x-ray on your ankle, so you got to go book an appointment the next day or 2 days later at an x-ray ultrasound place. They won't give you the results, so then you got to go back to your family doctor or walk-in. So all that runaround in time is probably greater than what you would have spent in the ER. So go down there, get checked out, and at the very least, get a clean bill of health. And also, it's important for like your health to do that, but for our collective safety, and the ability of organizations like the many advocacy organizations that you folks have, is to report this stuff and create data sets. So we know that this intersection saw 17 collisions in 3 months. With that data, your local organizations can push for infrastructure changes and law changes. So it's really critical, not only for your health and safety to report, but also for our collective health and safety as well. We need to know where problem areas are. We need to know if there's a problem driver who's got a history of hitting people. You need to report these things and make sure that that a record's created. Sorry, seek medical attention. You know that part now. I looped that into part 3. But yeah, so critical. So critical. So the next sort of the most important is your health and safety, right? But pretty soon after, you want to reach out to a lawyer, and get advised of your rights. We have an online crash report that helps you take information down. It's a good tool in Ontario, outside of Ontario. It tells you what you need to take down and send you an email copy of that. Okay. We have Biking Lawyer crash cards, which is that report in your back pocket. It basically QR codes to the report, prompts you for the 4 things you need to take down, the person's license plate. You can take a picture of it and sends that in the email to you too. It's a great way to record data for yourself or as a bystander witness for somebody else. I could probably send out a couple hundred of these if you all felt that they were useful. We do have local, we represent clients across the country in sort of more severe cases, but we do have partners in Halifax and Dartmouth that we work with. You can reach out to us, and if we can't help directly, we can refer you to our team. So in Ontario, we have what are called accident benefits. You all have the same thing. It's called Section B benefits. And this is no fault insurance benefits available to anybody involved in a collision with a motor vehicle. You could be a pedestrian, a passenger, a cyclist, or another driver. If a motor vehicle is involved in a collision and injures you, you can access these benefits, no questions asked. If you have your own car insurance, but you were cycling at the time you were hit by this other driver, you would apply to your car insurance, believe it or not. I got hit in a bike lane, obviously not in my RAV4, but I had to apply to my car insurance, and for 3 years they paid me out like $30,000 in benefits for physio and trauma counseling and things like that. If you don't, because you're a cyclist, so you don't have a car and you're saving the world for everybody else, then you can access insurance through the driver that hit you. Or if you're on your mom's policy or something like that, then you would go to your mom's policy. It doesn't affect anybody's rates. It's a no fault system. It's there to protect you. Okay. You have to apply within 30 days. You get entitlements to medical rehabilitation benefits, massage therapy, acupuncture, physiotherapy. We see a lot because being involved in a collision with a motor vehicle is you as a vulnerable road user coming up against 2,000 pounds of motorized steel, very traumatic. So we see a lot of psychological injury, mental health issues arising after the trauma. So psychotherapy, counseling for road phobias, that stuff's covered here too. In Nova Scotia, you all have access to about 50,000 in benefits for sort of injuries that are more than a sprain up to a non-catastrophic injury. And that's just, so it's like your fractured wrist or broken ankle or something. If it is a catastrophic injury, which I'm not going to get into too much here, but it's, it is what you think it is, then you can have access to closer to $1 million in care, I believe, in Nova Scotia as well too. Also entitles you to some lost wage support, up to $250 a week in lost wages. If you're caregiving for somebody at the time and that stops, you get support there. Or if you're in school, there's a different benefit that you would get as well. There's a minor category for sprains and strains. In Ontario, it's $3,500. I'll get you the number on Nova Scotia. But even if you have minor injuries, we counsel. You don't need a lawyer, but we counsel people to access these benefits and like get the massage, get the physio. Better to only be down and out for a couple of weeks than a couple of months. The goal being to get you back on the bike. So know that these benefits are out there for you, and you can access them. Even if you had a couple of drinks, jumped off a curb on your bike, and accidentally ran into a city bus or something, regardless of fault, you have access to this. It's sort of the one thing that we find cyclists uniformly don't know about, because we many of us don't have car insurance. It's just something we want to highlight. The sort of second of two roads you go down if you've been involved in a collision is your more traditional tort civil law claims, and that's where you sue the motorist for causing you injury. In this scenario, if the person is deemed at fault, or if there's a likelihood that they'd be at fault, then you can sue them and get things for like pain and suffering. Say you're laborer or you're a machinist and you work with your hands, and they've caused a hand fracture that permanently affects your ability to work, then the impact on your career, be it an early retirement or a retraining, all gets calculated in loss of income claims. And so that's where you hear about some more significant claims getting paid out in these situations. It also covers care beyond, if that 50,000 isn't enough to cover you for physio and rehab, for the remainder of your life that you'll need. It covers you for that stuff as well. So, like I said at the beginning, systemic differences and challenges will be faced by folks. We've done a lot of chatting with our, non-white male cyclist clients about what they've done and what work together on solutions there, or ways to navigate that cause less harm. Certainly in dealing with police, this can be very tricky. With police and at the hospital, we know that anti-blackness and discrimination against Indigenous folks is prevalent. So we really recommend the buddy system. If the police ask you to come give a statement about your crash, don't go by yourself. Get someone to come with you. If they're coming down to the scene and that makes you nervous, get someone to come down there and stand there with you as you make a statement. You also could be in shock, so it's probably a good idea to have someone there anyways. If you are seriously injured, don't let them take a statement from you in the back of the ambulance. Say, listen, I don't think this is an appropriate time. At the hospital, the buddy system works well too, because you're in shock as well, and it's just good to have someone else there to advocate for you. What we see very frequently is cyclists, obviously, even though if we're wearing helmets, suffer head injury and concussion alongside your orthopedic injury. And so you go to the emergency room and they're so focused on your orthopedic injury that the concussion almost gets dismissed in 9 out of 10 cases, or not addressed, rather, not dismissed, not addressed. And so it's really important to have someone there who's noticing you looking a little dizzy to say, hey, folks, we need to take a look at this. So that buddy system works there too. Dealing with insurance companies, the same thing, but in that case, the buddy system probably isn't going to help you. You want to have a lawyer involved, okay? And yeah, even amongst lawyers in the justice system, there can be distrust, and that is entirely understandable. Reach out to your community, see which lawyers they've worked with before and who's trustworthy. People that are engaged on these issues in a meaningful way, beyond just trying to score some work, is important, I think. Now there's some of the challenges that I was talking about. Like I said, always speak to a lawyer after getting medical care. In Nova Scotia and in Ontario, all lawyers work on a contingency, all personal injury lawyers work on it, and this is a personal injury matter, contingency fee basis. So you can get a free consult, and they should, if they take your case, do it on a contingency fee basis, which means that you don't pay up front. It's only if you win or settle. We have a ton of resources for cyclists. A lot of them are Ontario specific, but happy to write about perspectives from the East Coast as well. We've got a great cycling and police guide. We've got our crash cards, as we've said, and different posters and things like that. If you check out our blog, we talk about everything from dooring and hit and runs, into how to be safe biking in the winter, what kind of responsibilities there are on municipalities for bike lane clearing, and things like that. So check us out. We're Ontario focused, obviously, but our goal and sort of in practice now is to be the cycling law specialist in Canada. That's us.